Hello. Today, our group is going to talk about second language acquisition and its implications. In this presentation, we will explain how people learn a second language, the main theories that describe this process, and the implications these ideas have for language teaching and learning. Learning a second language is a complex and fascinating process that combines cognitive, social, and environmental factors. Unlike learning our first language, which happens naturally in childhood, acquiring a second one often happens later in life and requires more motivation, exposure, and instruction. Understanding how people learn a second language helps teachers like us design better and more effective teaching strategies adapted to how the brain actually learns a new language. So, before going deeper into the theories, let's first clarify what we mean by second language acquisition. What is L2 acquisition? Second language acquisition refers to the process of learning any language after your mother tongue. For example, when someone learns English after growing up speaking Spanish, that's L2 acquisition. This process can happen in two main contexts: in natural settings like immigrants learning the language of their new country through daily life, and in classroom settings where students learn a foreign language with formal instructions. Now that we understand what second language acquisition means, let's move on to the main theories that explain how this process happens.
Gaussian monitor model is a theory of second language acquisition proposed by linguist Stephen Cratchit that includes five hypotheses. The first hypothesis is acquisition learning. In this part, there are two topics: acquisitions and learning. About acquisition, a subconscious process that occurs when individuals focus on communication and meaning, much like a child learning their first language. Learning, the conscious process of learning grammar rules through formal instructions. The second hypothesis is monitor hypothesis. This hypothesis suggests that conscious learning acts as a monitor or editor that can correct or edit language output generated by the acquired system. To use the monitor effectively, a learner must know the rule, focus on form, and have sufficient time. Learners can be under-user, over-user, optimal user of the monitor. The third hypothesis is natural order hypothesis. Grammatical structures are acquired in a predictable, natural sequences regardless of the order they are taught. This order is similar to that of first language acquisition. The fourth hypothesis is input hypothesis, and language is acquired by receiving comprehensible input messages that are slightly beyond the learner's current level of understanding. Focusing on input is more crucial for acquisition than focusing on output or grammar rules. The last hypothesis is affective filter hypothesis. Affective variables such as motivation, self-confidence, and anxiety can affect the learning process. A high level of anxiety creates a high affective filter, which blocks comprehensible input, while a lower anxiety levels allow more input to be processed for acquisition.
The Long's interaction hypothesis, proposed by Michael Long, suggests that language is best learned through interaction and communication. When learners interact, they receive input, produce output, and get feedback that helps them notice and correct their language errors. And key components of the interaction hypothesis. Number one is comprehensible input, and then learners acquire a language when they understand message. Um, Interaction help make input comprehensible through clarification and repetition. Number two, negotiation of meaning. When communication breaks down, learners and speakers negotiate, for example, ask questions, repeat, or rephrase, and to understand each other. Number three is feedback. And during interaction, learners get corrective feedback and which helps them notice their mistakes and improve. And number four is modified output. Learners try to adjust or reformulate their speech or to make it clearer, and this helps them develop a better grammar and vocabulary. In this example, learners say he go to school yesterday, and the native speaker say, "Oh, you mean he went to school yesterday?" And finally, the learners say, "Oh, yes, he went." The correction and clarification in this interaction help the learner notice the correct grammar. Long interaction hypothesis states that interaction, especially when learners negotiate meaning, this facilitates second language acquisition because it provides comprehensible input, feedback, and opportunities for output. Smith's noticing hypothesis, proposed by Richard Smith, states that learner must consciously notice language features in the input in order to acquire them. In simple terms, you can't learn what you don't notice, especially alone. Just hearing or reading isn't enough. And learners need to pay attention to specific aspects of the language like grammar forms, pronunciation, or word choice. About the process overview, number one is input, and the language expose for example, what you hear or read. About number two is notice, is paying conscious attention to a form. Uh, uh, for example, what you pay attention to a form. And number three is intake. Is you use the knowledge you know. Is for example what you stored. And number four, it's acquisition. it's the form becomes part of your natural use. For example, what you can use. Okay, and this example, in the part input, you hear he has gone home. In noticing, you realize has gone. It sounds different from a went, from he went. And number three is intake. In this part, you remember has gone equal present perfect with connection to know. And number four, it's the acquisition. And you say he has gone home correctly later. Finally, Smith's noticing hypothesis says that consensus noticing of the language forms in input is necessary for learning, and without noticing, no real acquisition occurs.
About influencing a factor in second language acquisitions, and there are four main factors that influence how people learn a second language: age, context, motivation, and instruction. Age is important because children usually get better pronunciation, while adults may learn faster but keep an accent. And context also matter. Learning in a natural environment like studying abroad gives more real communication, but a classroom can also help if activities are meaningful. Motivation plays a big role. Interactive motivation means learning to connect with people and culture, while instrumental motivation to connect with people and culture, one instrument influence factor in second language acquisition. There are four main factors that influence how people learn a second language. For example, age, context, motivation, and instruction. Age is important because children usually get better pronunciation, while adults may learn faster but keep an accent. In the case the context also matter. Learning in natural environment like studying abroad gives more real communication, but classroom can also help if activities are meaningful. Motivation plays a big role. Interactive motivation means learning to connect with people and culture, while instrumental motivation is for practical goals like work or exam. And finally, instruction helps when teachers give clear input, feedback, and practice. For example, a student will practice English every day in real conversation, learn faster than one who only study grammar. Thank you.
Now, the final point is the difference between first language acquisition and second language acquisition. Well, and the first part we have the aspect that is timing, process, input, outcome, and errors. And then we have at the first language acquisition, and in the second language acquisition. Well, the difference in timing is that first language acquisition is a natural process. It happens when we were child, when we are growing. And the second language acquisition, it occurs later, after the first language acquisition is established. About the process, in the first one, the conscious is subconscious, and universal and biologically driven. It means that we don't know or we don't do this conscious. Instead of we do this subconscious. And the second one is conscious. We know that we are learning a language. Input. And the first one is constant, natural, and exposure from our caregivers, could be our parents. And the second one, it's limited or artificial because the exposure is mainly in the classroom. Outcome. And the first one is native and all the competence in all the aspect. And the second one, it varies. It could be a few rich and native like proficiency. And finally, errors. The first one is part of the natural growth, and the second one, the errors may fossilize. And this could be because it could be insufficient the input or the feedback given. And finally, we have the conclusion. The conclusion is that second language acquisition is influenced by a lot of theories and factors, and we have different models like crashing, but that said that this important input interaction processing all are essential in learning. But in first language acquisition is different because it's unconscious. The second language acquisition requires conscious effort, motivation, and also structure and instructions. For this reason, teachers have to be important in order to create the enough interactions and conditions for their students. Thank you.